Okay, so we started recording. I'd like to thank Mr. McClure for sending me this first cartoon of the day, and it's one of my favorite jokes, and about the snowman asking each other, "Do you smell carrots?" And it took me a little while to figure it out, but Mark, I figured it out because they have carrots for noses, and I think that's why they smell carrots. And so as we move on, see if I can. Thank you. And this is the November 4th roundtable for CTAT. And again, we have these the first Thursday of every month. And it's an exciting day for me because I enjoy seeing everyone, even if it's just on Zoom. And I enjoy hearing the discussion and hearing all of you guys learn from each other. And again, that reminds me of to record, which I've already done. Just hit that button. And so remember, all of these sessions are Zoom-based and they're hosted by CTAT. And more often than not, we always post these sessions on a media platform such as YouTube. And so if for some reason you do not wish to have your picture displayed to public view, you can still participate with the video turned off. Otherwise, your participation serves as consent to your picture being posted via Zoom frame to social media platforms like YouTube. And we appreciate you being here. For some breaking news, it's really limited today, which is good news. So one of the things when we're in November, it always happens, and that's when the Thanksgiving holidays occur. So everyone's kind of getting really excited as we get closer to that break. For Thanksgiving, it makes me think of in '74 when the Cowboys had a Thanksgiving Day game against the Redskins, and they knocked Roger Staubach out with a concussion. And Clinton Longley, who was from Abilene Christian University, came in and threw 3 touchdowns as a rookie. They called him the Mad Bomber, coming in threw 3 touchdowns to upset the Redskins. And so that's one of my favorite Thanksgiving memories. Also, thinking about Charlie Brown's special, that I always look forward to that. And I think one of the things that we never do is we never look at Thanksgiving through the eyes of the turkey. So the turkey thinks Happy Thanksgiving, except for the people that call it Turkey Day, because it's not necessarily the best day for the turkey. So I thought we'd take just a few seconds to look at Thanksgiving through the eyes of the turkey. And so here we have the far side, and the turkeys get newspapers just like we do, but the content's a little bit different. So as they're getting closer to Thanksgiving, the turkeys are reading about an axe murderer, and they're saying, so axe murders are on the rise again. So that means you're getting closer to Thanksgiving. And if you're a turkey, that's bad news. And so here's a turkey talking about they're having Thanksgiving over Zoom this year, so that turkey doesn't have to get dressed, and that's good news for the turkey. Here's a turkey that's checking his Facebook accounts, and he wonders what it means when the farmer unfriends him on Facebook. And here he comes with his axe. That's probably not good news, being unfriended on Facebook if you're a turkey. And then this is my favorite one. This is a turkey selling skinny turkey t-shirts to the other turkeys for $10. He's kind of an entrepreneur. Probably did that in one of the incubator programs there. But he sells these skinny t-shirts. So hopefully this turkey is trying to not get picked for the Thanksgiving dinner. So I always think it's humorous to look at Thanksgiving through the eyes of the turkey. Enjoy these roundtables, because one of the things that is best about CTAT and about the career and technical education community is the way they work. And of course, we all know that working better together is the way to go. And so we do have a few news items. As far as the coronavirus, the last update was from September 17th. So in that regard, no news is good news. And then other, of course, you all know about the CTE programming. We have the Next Gen administrators going on these monthly roundtables. The winter conference, if you haven't, it's not too late to register for the winter conference. And then we're doing district program evaluations. And we had if someone is interested in a program evaluation, we had a cancellation in September and in December. So December's open. If anyone's interested, you can just shoot me an email at mark@ctat.org. And also we've mentioned this, the last 2 roundtables on the CTAT Connect, on the Connect CTAT forum. If you'll go and you'll look at the library function, then you'll see that every document that's ever been posted in Connect CTAT is saved in the library tab. And so, for example, if you want a CTE handbook, and of course, Tracy Hendricks at Pflugerville posted an outstanding one back a few months ago, that's still in there. You can just go in there and you can perform a search or just scroll down and find the handbook. So don't forget about using that library tab in order to find documents that have been posted in Connect CTAT. And then another thing is, I want to remind everyone, if you're not getting the newsletters from TEA, you need to go onto the TEA CTE website, and you can go down there and click newsletters and get signed up. And also they have all the archive newsletters from the year. You can click and you can read any newsletter that's been issued this school year. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the CTAT YouTube channel. Every time there's a new video posted, you will get notification. And of course, this will be posted along with other content. So make sure you're a subscriber to the CTAT YouTube channel so you get a ding when something's posted. Good news. Robin and Leslie and I met this morning to look at the winter presentations for the CTAT Winter Conference, February 7th through the 9th, and presentations are now closed. So we went on there and we were going to move some other ones out, and the content was so great, and I'm being literal here, the content was so incredible that instead of taking some presentations out, what Leslie decided to do was to open up another time slot to fit in more presenters. And so the content at this winter conference is going to be incredible. And thank you to all of you that presented. And for those of you that are in the next gen group, if you haven't presented yet, well, you might want to hold off a little bit, because we're probably going to move the rest of the presentations that are submitted to the summer conference. But the presentations are incredible. So thank you very much for all of you that submitted content for the winter conference, February 7th through the 9th. And we still want you thinking about presentations, but from this point forward, it'll be for summer conference. One other update, congratulations, Donna McKethan. Governor Greg Abbott appointed members to the Industry-Based Certification Advisory Council for terms to be determined as set forth by law in House Bill 3938. And so, Donna, congratulations for being selected to that council. And I know that we're going to hear from you just a minute on A through F, but we just want to say what a great honor. And we really appreciate you and the other members that serve on these type of committees. So congratulations to Donna for being appointed to the Governor's Industry-Based Certification Advisory Council. And that's as important as it sounds. So now, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to stop sharing and get back in gallery and see what everyone has on their mind.
I'll start because I need some serious help.
Excellent.
And it's something I've heard. Hopefully there's been some presentations, but are any of the rest of you being faced with having to do TIA for your CTE classes? And what are you going to do? And what a complete and utter nightmare that is. So, I mean, I just am overwhelmed. We have more CTE classes than any area has. We have more CTE classes than the other classes in the high schools. And so coming up with a process, a TIA instrument for every single CTE class is going to be the nightmare that I think it is. It's just going to be horrible. So anybody, I talked to Garland today. They had a plan and TEA didn't approve it. They're back at the drawing board. And so I'm trying to find places that we can use as examples, and Garland's meeting next week and they're going to call me back, and I'm trying to reach out to as many people, but where are y'all on TIA in your district?
Here at
Don-
Brian ISD, oh, go ahead.
No, you go, Laura. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Here at Brian ISD, we are in our planning year for CTE. The core content teachers are currently in TIA, like at the actual, like, you know, they're doing the map testing and whatnot for that one. But we are doing a planning pilot year of precision testing for the student growth measures for TIA. And so far, like all of our classes have done a pre-test. I think we were going to do a benchmark, excuse me, sorry about that, at semester time, and then hopefully doing the post-testing sometime in the spring, where we will be able to use that data to work on growth measures for next year's rollout.
The precision exams, that company?
Yes, ma'am. I think they're U Science now is their new name.
And you found one for every course?
So we had our teachers do TEKS crosswalks with all of our courses. We were not able to find one for every single course. Mainly like cosmetology, they're like, we couldn't find anything even close there. So we're kind of working with like My Lady and some of the Cengage stuff to find an option there. But otherwise, yes, our teachers kind of aligned in what we were told by our consultant. And I think David is on the call. He's out of the office at a campus right now, but I think he can pop in at some point if he wants to.
Yeah, I'm on here.
So what our consultant shared with us is that like we don't have to have every single course with a growth measure. The main thing is every teacher had to teach at least one course with a growth measure. So like automotive, for example, I think in precision, there's only one automotive test. So we're planning to put that in whichever course all of our auto teachers teach, if that makes sense.
Donna, that precision, they dang near got a test for every subject in CTE. There's a few that they don't, like cosmetology and a few, but they pretty much got one for everything. And like Laura said, your teacher just has to teach one course that has a pre and post test so they can have that growth measure. Okay. And that's what our understanding is. And so at the end of this year, what we got to do now is at the end of the year, we have to take that data and we have to determine what that growth measure is going to be. And then once we determine that, we'll submit that and they'll either approve it or not approve it. But we won't know that until after we go through that this summer.
Donna or Miss King or David, do one of y'all mind sharing the process? Incentive
The
allotment
TIA process? Well,
yeah.
I'll share it from a novices, and then someone could make sure I'm right. In our district, well, I think some of it's district, but in our district, 50% is their T-test evaluation. They have to be at a certain level. I think it's like a 3 point something to even be considered. Then 40% in our district currently is student growth, and then 10% are leadership. And I'm not even sure what that means in our district. And so the students have to show growth in whatever subject they're in. So if you have the option of using pre and post test, you have the option of using a portfolio, and you have the option of using SLOs, but they're not the SLOs like we use in T-tests. They're a little bit different. That being said, it's just an overwhelming, daunting thing. And so what we're going to do where we're at now, and I need help. I'm just going to tell you, I'm just overwhelmed. I have too much other things to do to deal with this. But anyway, I have to. So, because our administration this is how a teacher can earn $100,000 a year. And we're like, okay, that's not much pressure. And so I'm just going to break it down. I'm going to start academy by academy and try to break it down that way. If there's a certification test, I'm planning to use a post and pre-certification test. Students would not have to pass the certification test in order for the teacher to get credit. There's like the growth measures. Each district comes up with what they decide is their growth measures. Some of the things we're running into, I hadn't thought about today, was like if you choose a rubric, you have to have someone qualified to grade the rubric. The teachers can't grade their own rubrics. So that's a nightmare. Who's gonna do that? I mean, Chris, I don't know if she would wanna, we'd have to train her on how to judge a, commercial photography portfolio. That's kind of scary. Or do we hire someone or, so that came up today. So that made my kind of crawl, but I think precision exam is something we've been talking about. Then, of course, with automotive, you've got ASE certifications. Can we divvy those out a couple per year and be done with that? So the only way I know to do it is break it down, but that's what it is. We're planning to, but this is November. So the planning year is halfway over. I have to be ready in April. So yeah, not a lot of time.
And once you decide on the criteria, then you submit it to TEA?
Yeah, and then
Question mark?
TEA's got to decide that if they approve it. So one of the things that a lot of districts were doing is they were using Renaissance reading, or the one that I know about is Renaissance math. Well, they allowed it, but then they came back this year and said you can't use it because it's got to be TEKS based. The growth has to be based on the TEKS for the course. And how can you say that calculus has TEKS and Renaissance math? So there's that. So of course, in our school, curriculum department has a whole army of people that can write tests for them, and I don't quite have that army. So anyway, and I think Brooke's got something to say, but that's where we are now. It's a nightmare, and it's something, you talked about, Mark, the importance of us pulling together as a team. If we need some tests written for things like those principles classes, let's pull our resources together and share. The TEA has to approve it once you submit it.
Donna, I was just going to say, the one thing that I can say here in Aldine, we're a fortunate one that they considered us and even included us, but they wrote a generalized plan. So it wasn't specific for each content area. And so like for CTE, it was a pre and post test, 20 questions at varying levels for your DOK. And I don't know about you all, but BIM across 29 campuses, I can't personally grade a rubric on that. So that became very hard. We did bring in precision exams, and to be honest with you, that was something we were really leaning towards. However, you don't have access to those questions, so you can't tell what DOK level they are. So that's why when you write your plan to TEA, you have to be if you're going to use something like that, you need to be specific that it's coming from industry and that you won't have access to those questions, because there's no way that we can prove that 20 questions were at those certain varying levels of DOK. And that's where we really ran into. Is it something we're looking to possibly change in the future? Absolutely. But there's just no way to go about it. But the big thing I can tell you is the 20 pre-questions and the 20 post-questions, they have to be completely different. They can't be the same set of questions. They still have to have your primary focus. And we try to partner with as many professors from post-secondary to help us write those test questions. But again, we don't have access to that many people. We have over 200 courses. So we were able to knock it down to where at least every teacher had one course. And that got us down to like 67 exams. So the first 4 weeks of school, I didn't look at email. And that's how we had to do it. And it was a nightmare and it was a booger. And a team of 6 of us, 2 of us went out because of COVID, and we still struggled, but we finally got it done. So if I can make any recommendations, please don't collect 20 questions at varying DOK levels. And they were written by you and going to be graded by you, because it has been a nightmare. But at least what we are considering a blessing is that during this baseline year, we were at least included. So
one more other component to this that everybody on the call really needs to consider is that like if a teacher comes to you from another district after already being identified as an exemplary teacher or whatever the levels are, I've lost track of them in TIA, your district has to compensate them through that. So just because I know there was a couple of districts that were like, I don't want to be a part of this. That could be an issue that comes up, especially with our transient population. So be prepared.
Brooke, has the Aldine plan been approved by TEA?
Yes. So that's how this year we were submitting all of our data, and then we're actually working with Texas Tech because they will be going through and validating everything that we do.
So is your plan on your website, Brooke?
That's a really good question. I do not know where that is actually at. I just have it in email. So let me see what I can get, Donna, as far as like verbiage, and I'll try and share that out.
Okay, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna put my email in there, so maybe, you know, if I would love to see it, so I don't lose my.
And Brooke and Donna, if Brooke can email that to me, if she doesn't find it right away, I can email that out to everyone that's registered for this session.
Perfect. I'm still putting my email out there. I'm just desperate.
Well, it is good to know that at least one school has a plan that's approved by TEA. Does anyone else have a plan that's already been approved for teacher incentive allotment?
Yeah, Mark, Brian, our plan has been approved.
Oh, fantastic. I'm sorry. David, how much did y'all incorporate that excellence training into that at all?
Well, yes, absolutely. And we tie it more to T-test than anything. And so, you know, we would love for Texas Tech to take our rubric and incorporate that into our teacher growth measure as well. But, you know, right now, you know, it's a little iffy right now. So we hope in the future we'll be able to tie it more. But right now we're tying it to the teacher side on the teacher growth measure. But there are consultants out there, guys. We had a consultant for TIA. If you call TASB, they have consultants out there that'll come work with you on TIA. And I know that several districts have used them. And so I will send you, if anybody's interested, email me and I'll send you our consultant's contact.
Thanks, David. And don't forget, if you can email those to me, I can send them out. And also, if you post them in Connect CTAT, they'll go right into that library tab. So there's a couple of different ways we can get those resources out. I'm a little bit embarrassed about many times before the roundtables, people will send me topics they want to discuss so I can make sure we get them in. And Donna sent an email early in the week, said about TIA. And I thought, and finally I had to call her and said, Donna, what's TIA? So she had to coach me up on, I knew teacher incentive allotment, it's just an acronym I haven't used yet. So Donna, thanks for the heads up on that. Anyone else?
It was a new acronym to me about 2 weeks ago. So I was like, what is this? I thought that was academic. So I learned too.
Yeah. You can never get enough of those. You know, career tech's a lot like NASA. You know, if you want to go into lunar orbit or run career tech, then you need to be well versed in acronyms. Okay, fantastic. And Donna, I hate to put you on the spot here, but do you have any updates from the accountability committee?
If you could let me share screens, I'm going to go to the CTAT Connect 3 site because I want to share. Oops. Because there's a couple of things we need to talk about. Let me get that right.
You should be able to share now.
I'm trying to find it. Okay. So I put this information out on the Connect forum. But first of all, on the as far as update, they didn't even mention CTE at all. They're all about the accountability reboot and how they're going to grade and all this. So, but one of the things that I found pretty interesting, and I put this on here. Can y'all see those district ratings? Well, year before last or so, the commissioner came into our meeting and he said, I don't understand why the district that my child attends has failing campuses and yet they're a B on the accountability rating system. So this is some examples that we got. So here's a campus here. They've got all these D's and C's, but the district is a B. Here's one with a smaller district with an elementary and high school, a C and a B, but there's an A for the district. Over here, you can see all these, there's some failing schools and yet the district comes out as a B. So what's happening here in the current accountability system in elementary and middle school, the only thing that they're judged on is the STAR test. That's the only measures they have. In high school, we have CCMR. So what is happening is that if your high school is doing really well, your district is going to do very well. So there's a couple of philosophies about this. First of all is one philosophy that you hear spoken about is the group of people that says the ultimate measure of a school is how many kids graduate. So there's some folks that believe this is the way it should be. However, to the public perception, look at these grades. How can you come up with a B when you're failing? And they're using these letter grades like we're using, like we use them in school. So if you were a mom and your kid had all these failing grades, you would be surprised that they made an overall average of a B. So it's very confusing to the public. So what happens is they're kind of putting off the giving points for completing a 4-year sequence. If they were to put it in place today, as the system stands, then what's going to happen is this disconnect between other grades not having many measures, and then all of a sudden we add more. So it's not so much that anyone is against adding the point for the system. It's just that the system is wonky right now. There needs to be other measures for elementary and middle school so that it's when the district is presented, then that is not so wonky. It's more understandable. If they had something else, so what do you measure? What do you add in that is a true accountability measure? So right now, this committee has been charged. We've been charged with trying to fix elementary and middle school so that high schools don't disproportionately represent and get the district grade higher than perhaps what the grades reflect. So once those are middle and elementaries are fixed, I think that's when the committee will begin to talk about the points for completing 4 years. So it's not going to happen this year. So everything is the same. You get point right now just for the work certifications. They're also looking at ways to incorporate the military, but all of those things, the military, the points for completing 4-year sequences, I don't foresee them really being talked about in earnest until they fix elementary and middle school. So I don't want us as an organization to get bent out of shape and thinking, oh, they just don't like CTE, they don't want us to do. That's not what it is. It's just that the system needs to be fixed before they can consider it. I'm going to unshare. Any thoughts or comments? I did turn in the big number of responses to the survey. They were very complimentary that many people responded. And so that was really good for our part. And so I turned in all the comments. I just shared some of them with you, but I shared all the comments and complete set of, to them. And they know how we feel. And at this point, what I don't want us to do as an organization is think that TEA is against us. you got to fix other systems before they can add another layer to getting points, because all that will do is even more disproportionately push those ratings up. So right now, so goes the high school, so goes the district. So if your high school is doing well right now, then the district will. And so that's where they are. I don't see us talking about it. I mean, I'll go to the meetings, but I don't really see them even mention it earliest probably this summer. Just don't see them mention it much.
Donna, Ms. Hendricks asked in the chat box if there's a timeline for having that issue resolved.
The reboot is scheduled to gather data and review it next year. So the reboot should start within the next 2 years. But right now, nothing's changed.
I don't
I
see
got
it. Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of phone calls that said, you know, when are they going to start counting it? And the answer is not anytime soon, not this next year for sure. So not our current school year. So I'll keep you, I'll go in, Tracy, I'll go in and post the timeline from our PowerPoint and you'll have the actual, but they're still working on it. I mean, the measures for middle school and elementary are difficult. I mean, elementary, when you put in your kindergarten and pre-K, attendance would be difficult to measure because, you know, those young kids don't come to school like they should. What could you measure in high school other than STAR? So, you know, when you start thinking about that and really pondering how that would look, it becomes difficult. They are also looking at a different accountability system for alternative schools where you get the, you know, you might go for, ours is called Brazos High School, and they go in and, you know, they do virtual learning and kind of a quick way out, you know, catch up recovery, graduation recovery school. So they're looking at changing that. But this is the time that the legislature said we had to do a reboot. And so that's what's going on now. I just want you to know, please don't, you know, I think as an organization, we just need to be patient. And I think sometimes we don't fully understand why they're dragging their feet. And they're not dragging their feet because they don't think CTE is important. They're dragging their feet because there's some things that need to be fixed below us. Does that make sense?
But ultimately, a program of study completer will be added to accountability because that's a matter of law.
It is, but how many points is yet to be determined?
Right.
So most of you, the majority of people, like I showed you last week, wanted to count a full point, just like the industry certifications do. You know, their original proposal had to do with combining them. I think that got shot down and tossed in the toilet. That's not even really on the table anymore. But how do you count it? Is it worth the half? Is it worth the whole? You know, when you compare it to taking one remedial college remediation course, and all they do is take that, and for us, we have to take 4, you know, that becomes difficult. I think there's a financial issue we have to think about. Most of those, a lot of them, like your AP tests, your dual credit, certification tests cost money. So how districts that have funding issues, you know, the 4-year would be something that didn't cost the district extra funds, even though they do reimburse some of that, it's still, at some point you have to pay for it ahead of time. So any thoughts for any of y'all? Or
Donna, we sure appreciate you serving on that committee.
You're welcome. And it's interesting. I usually have my accountability expert from the district. She comes and hides. And when they come across something in math and science, she feeds me the right thing to say so I can act like I know all about it. But it's just a CT. I'm there listening.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any other topics? PT, are you still on here somewhere?
Yes, sir.
At the summer conference, when we were doing peer-to-peer, we talked a little bit about how important it was for the PEMS data to be correct around snapshot.
Yes, sir.
Have any input on the snapshot, how it changed this year? the PEMS data, how'd that go for you? I remember you talked about it at peer-to-peer.
Right. So what we actually are still trying to do, I know the snapshot is over with, but still you still have some submissions for your courses that will be later on in the year that you can still get your courses and stuff. It's my understanding in there if you don't have your PEMS codes correct and the your voc ed codes and stuff correct in there as well. Main thing is what I do is I try to go through each individual class and look at your PEMS numbers, make sure that those codes are correct within that. Your descriptions even, I like to have that and try to match it with our master schedule too, and try to clean all it up to where it's less confusing when you're looking at it. One of the issues that I've seen in the past is when you go through, and especially in Skyward, if you clone a class from last year, you know, a lot of times you're picking up mistakes that you've already done in the past. And so it's kind of really interesting to go ahead and look at it fresh sometimes. So anyway, there is a way to go through and look at each individual class and look at all the information there. And it is important. So.
PT, I appreciate you bringing that up. I checked our PEMS numbers for 20 years, and every one of those years I found a mistake. So you just can't go through it enough times, and it's critical. It's more critical now than ever. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms. Bonds, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I actually have a PEMS and FTE question. So back in 1920, when we brought in middle school and all of the computer science, our SIS is eSchool, and they were saying that the vendor had an issue and it wasn't picking up all of our classes. So we got this huge chunk of money at the end of the year. Well, I just asked our PEMS coordinator for an FTE count, and it's again way off. Even though our class enrollment has changed. Is anybody else in eSchool, and have you checked your FTEs to see if you have any issues? I'm going to try and work with our person, but it was to the tune of this same gap a few years ago, and it was $6-point-something million that we had to hurry up and spend. So I want to get it fixed. I just didn't know if anybody else has eSchool and is having issues.
Who else uses eSchool?
I'm not using eSchool, I'm using Skyward, but I've noticed that when they build a new class, they don't turn on the funding for CTE. So, and that's the Texas state specific in Skyward. So I don't know if there's something comparable to that in your platform.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'll ask her to look at everything. There's anybody who's got experience and other ideas. I appreciate it.
Ms. Bonds, whatever the function is, like Ms. Keller was talking about, and we look. But anyway, it's going to be in the contact hours. If your contact hours are in the class and it's saved, then it should be picking up the FTEs.
Thank you.
Sherry, are you saying that when the change was made to where we could collect weighted funding at middle schools, is that where you started having the problem?
Yes, so that year in 1920, we even had an issue the year before, because what was it, in the spring, where computer science was added, and it took a little bit of zhuzhing to get that one fixed. But then that next year, it was again all of computer science and then our middle school classes. So
and how many middle schools do you have in your district?
11. And we
Okay.
have at least 2 classes at each, 2 different courses at each middle school.
And are they high school credit courses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
What PT said a little bit ago about the cloning, a lot of times when they create those classes, they just clone them. And if they're not using a good original to clone from, then like PT said, they clone the mistakes again and again and again and again.
Yeah, that's definitely a good heads up. Thank you.
And then let's see. Letitia is asking about IBC written guidelines, teacher requests, subsequent purchase, date test, date taken. And Letitia, I assume that you're asking about just the logistics of how a district handles their IBCs. Does anyone have written guidelines for teachers on the process that they do when they finish an industry-based certification or a student earns it. Letitia, am I saying it? Am I putting your question correctly?
Yes, I guess our audit, internal audit wants written procedures, and TA really didn't give us any type of procedures on this is how you should do, what you should do first, second, third. For reimbursement purposes, they did put out a lot of information, but how you do it internally and how you actually present that to your teachers and the guidelines that you're doing or using in your CTE office. So I just wondered if anybody has any written procedures that they have developed.
We have procedures for putting it on the into the system, because that's where it comes from. And then we have a new system that I hope I'm going to present at Midwinter on a process we use for bringing in new industry-based certifications. And then we do monitor the teachers and monitor the percentage they're getting. And I have in the past, I don't have to do it so much anymore, but if they don't meet an expectation for increasing number of certifications, they get kind of a as ugly as I get letter about increasing those.
I guess
So we
just
have a
like general information on how to request for your CT department to pay for a test.
Well,
written, because we had some, just like what you're saying, but they actually said, well, it has to be written and policy, and we just said this is the second year, but but I'm just wondering if anybody has come across that, because that's a big thing right now with them, and spending money, and so I just wondered if because we wrote the guidelines, and then I don't think it was enough for them, and so I just wondered if anybody else has had to write guidelines.
we wrote guidelines as far as our graduation guru person to make sure it gets on the gets on their record, student record. We have those guidelines written, but as far as our expectation for the district is if you are in a class that has a certification, you're going to take it. There's not oh, I think I will. It's just the expectation. If it's a class that has a certification test on it, you're going to take the test. So there's no, as far as ordering the test, that's our expectation. But then we do have administrative procedures for how that test is, who records it onto the student work. But is that what you're asking? But now we have a new process, and we field tested it with a group at the Healthcare Academy that they're changing their certification, and we're the request to change or add a certification. We do have a process for adding certifications now.
Yeah.
I have two, one that I really don't want to do and one that I'm excited about. I don't need to be the one to make the decision, though. It should be industry making the decision, not me.
Right. Yeah, we sort of had all of that, but for some reason it's because everything's on the website that we included, and this is how we're going to record, and this is how it's going to be recorded on for performance acknowledgements, and but it's just the process to purchase, basically.
I don't know. James is here. He's part of that purchase process, and Chris is here. It's an expectation that if there's a certification, so if there's 50 kids in your classes, you're going to order 50 tests. So I don't know, James.
That's one of the things for our certification classes, is that we're trying to make sure that all those students are ready, test ready, so they can get that certification. But that's the main thing, is to ensure that all of them are at least going to have that opportunity to test and earn that certification.
So the number, I guess, for us is just based on the number of kids in the class. Now, some of it, like Certiport and some of those other kind, they give you like too many tests out there, give all those extras. That gives you opportunities for multiple testing, but As far as the only process we have is how many you have in class, that's how many you can order.
That's good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Letitia, also, if you use Connect CTAT, I'd recommend posting that type of question because those type of questions usually get the best responses.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Fantastic.
Letitia, I had a question. I'm curious, who's asking you? Is this in regards to an audit? I'm just curious.
Yeah, in fact, I was surprised, but the audit came through, and so they're real concerned about the bulk vouchers that a teacher may or may not issue those vouchers to family members, et cetera. So how do we match vouchers to students? And then they went on to say, how do you know if they've taken? Are you getting the proper documentation? And so it's the process of actually requesting for the department to purchase the test and subsequently, report it on Teams and then request reimbursement. So more than anything, it's the funds that are being used to purchase and how we're doing it, and do we have internal controls?
No, I'm just curious because, and I don't know if there's anybody else in here that has had this issue. I've just noticed there's been some ticky-tack things, question responses. I'm at ESC3 and I've worked with the district regarding their MOA, and there have been some very things things that you're very clear cut that they want us to do. I understand procedures, but it's just, I feel like that's very ticky tack. Like, why are you, why do you need to get these certifications? It's because I'm having my students that are in program to study to take these tests. And I'm just curious. I don't know if anybody else has had these.
Well, I would just say that it's best to have the guidelines on how you're doing it, how you are making sure you only pay for one and not multiples, because that was a surprise to us. And we did have documentation, and we did have a district-wide spreadsheet where we're doing a Control F and making sure, there's not multiple, cost or expenses, or we're paying for two, but it's just they were just surprised that TA didn't have any guidelines for this.
Listening to you, I know that like those CNA, those are vouchers. And my dean at the Healthcare Academy when she says, like at the end of the year, if she has extra money, I'm like, well, go buy some vouchers. We're going to need them, more kids next year. And they have a shelf life.
That was a big no for them. They were just no.
And we just keep a spreadsheet, and she's responsible for who uses that test. And I haven't come across that yet, but anybody else, like with those certifications, if they don't get used, those vouchers don't get thrown away.
If for Certiport they do. For Certiport, there's an expiration date. So I have to be extremely careful as far as the numbers that I purchase. I'm very, I keep a constant eye on what I purchase so that we're not overspending. And we do not purchase the voucher for every single student, simply because we want to ensure that their success instead of setting students up for failure. And so when we're purchasing vouchers, the teachers request those vouchers 4 times a year when their students are ready. I've got a real streamlined system for the teachers, and they utilize that. And I share that in the SMORE. There's a lot of information that we share with our teachers so they can utilize and know what they need to do for procedures.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And it sounds like, based on what Matthew said, there's multiple districts happening out there too. Any other hot topics for the group?
I had a question, Mark. There was a Q&A document that was sent out. Well, I'm sure you're familiar with it, with the TEA House Bill 3 regarding the reimbursements for IBCs. And one of the questions in there towards the end was asking whether we could use alternative funding sources to pay for these IBCs. And the alternative funding sources they were referring to was the CCMR outcome bonus monies, and also the Perkins federal or state funding or any grants. And the answer to the question was if we were requesting reimbursements, that we could not use these alternative funding sources to pay for the IBCs. So I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding that properly, in that if like our 55% that we're allotted, that we're not to use those and then turn around and request a reimbursement. That's kind of what our business office is telling us, that we cannot submit for a reimbursement if we're using our allotted monies.
I just read that, and it says that you need to set up a separate account to pay for the certifications. But the question came in, well, what if they fail? And you can use CTE funds to buy the certification test if they're failed. But the ones that are reimbursed, you should have a separate account. And I think some of the best practices are is most districts take that money that's advanced to them in the industry-based certifications, and they put that in a 99 account and just use it. And then when they get reimbursed or when settle up happens, they settle up with that account. So other people may have a better method. I think Allison at Burkeville was telling me they did similar to that, and also Dallas.
Yes, they set up a different account for us as well, and we've been using it for 2 years. And so we go through August 31st, and but we do have a different account for those that do actually pass.
Perfect. So that's exactly what we were told. So I just wanted to verify that that's what we were supposed to do. And the second question I had, Mark, was in regards to whether anybody was offering any, I guess, preparation for an IBC outside of a CTE course, let's say an after-school program, not necessarily any funded course, but just an opportunity for kids to certify, let's say in the floral exam, the knowledge-based exam. Does anybody have that? Because when our CNI office was asking this, and then somebody in our own team said, well, you got to be careful with that because it has to be tied to a CT course. That apparently there was a House bill on that. And I'm like, did I miss something? Okay, where's that? I mean, we've never done it. We've always offered certifications tied to our CT courses during the school day. We've never done anything outside of that. But now that question is being asked to me, well, can we do it outside of the school day in an after-school program per se? Obviously, they're looking for accountability points, right? That's the reason. And it's understandable. I mean, for students that are struggling, that may already be in other remediated classes to make up credits for graduation or for STAR preparation and such. And they may not have an opportunity in their schedule to add a CT course where we are trying to offer them an IBC. So we're looking for those opportunities. And so I just wanted to hear feedback from the group and see if any of you were doing something like that outside of the school day, outside of a CT course.
Not outside the CTE course, but we do have Saturdays. Like for example, the one that is most attended is to get their CNA. We have Saturday remedial days and we bring the kids up. Automotive has done some where they brought kids up and prepared for those ASC exams and let them have the free shop in the afternoon. So, but we've tied it to a course. I have some pretty strong feelings about that, but I think they should be. I mean, the whole purpose is that, well, I'll be quiet. I just think it needs to be tied to a course. I talked to someone on the phone. I get phone calls all the time, and there's some kind of issue. I mean, are we doing this to help kids? Are we doing it for the point?
Exactly.
They get points lots of ways.
Exactly.
I mean, is it, and I know there's districts who bring everybody in and take, maybe take that OSHA. I mean, but I think you have to, that's a philosophical thing you and your district need to look at. Are you doing how are you doing it? Why are you doing that certification?
Now, PT and Sherry can add to this, but in the CTE leadership committee with TEA the other day, somebody brought up that their ROTC program was asking about offering an industry-based certification through their course, that apparently there's a test that ties to what they do. And the TEA group kind of like, we're clear as mud on it. But it was an interesting question because even they went, well, I guess, I don't know. So PT, Sherry, if y'all have anything else to add to that, I know that one was one that made me go,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was just an odd question too, that it was different. So
yeah. Thank you.
We
I'd like
actually,
to know what that test is, because that might be a good way to get a military measure. I mean.
Yeah.
You know,
I
if
don't
they-
remember if they said what test, but we have drones here in the district, but our ROTC also has drones. So we have our CTE pathway and then Air Force is using it. So, I mean, I can definitely see them taking the 107. I don't know what the other certification was.
Very, very true.
Fantastic. It's 3:30 here and we won't be respectful of your time. So does anyone have a question that needs to be before the group or you'd like a group response? Okay, if not, then I'm going to stop recording and then we'll certainly stay on to answer off the record questions or have off the record topics. But before I hit the stop recording, I just want to thank everyone again for taking time out of your first Thursday of the month to benefit other CTE leaders and professionals in the state. And I realize that taking an hour out of your day is a pretty big deal for most of you. And so we appreciate it. And I know that other members appreciate all of you being here and the input that you provide. So thank you very much. And that's going to be the end of the recording session.